Welcome to the January Donovan Show. Today, I get to be with a friend, also a fellow wholeness coach and women's school coach that I have come to know over the years. And I think I share her love and desire for, I want to say, apostolic work, mission work, and just the heart of being able to serve. And so it's been a really privilege to get to know Amy and have her visit me in Florida. And so today we get to talk about life, all things about life. So, Amy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It is just a pleasure and delight to be here with you, January.
It's always a pleasure. You're smiling, radiant. So, I always like to begin with how would you describe Amy in 3 words?
Mm. Oh, 3 words. Okay. Um, Joyful, certainly joyful, faithful. Faith is really important to me. And I would also say passionate.
Passionate.
Yeah.
That's spot on. I can see it from what I know you. I love that you led with joy because that is how you've shown up to me every single
Mm,
just that radiant joy. So thank you for because that's your contribution to me and
mm,
I'm sure to everyone that you have worked with. So
mm.
Amy's a women's school coach or wholeness coach. So Amy, just talk to me, maybe just for our audience, what do you see are the deep struggles that you have encountered with women today in your work? Because you've been in this how many years?
Oh, I think it's about 4 years almost. I mean, so I've been here quite a while, started during the pandemic. Yeah. Um, So I've served a good number of women both in masterminds and in private coaching. And I think that what I see often is women struggling with the inability to manage all of the balls, so to speak, that they have to keep up in their lives. And I think a lot of it comes from not having the skill set to do it and the mindset, and not being surrounded with an army or a group of women who are also pursuing growth and holiness and living their best life. And so, I mean, a lot of the women that I work with, really overwhelm comes up all the time. All
Yeah.
the time, like I'm overwhelmed with my life, and and you say often it just means I'm underskilled.
Right. So we say in the women's school,
Right,
overwhelming
right,
understanding, which is really
yeah,
true if you think about it,
yeah.
right?
Right. And I think the pressures of the world that says you can have everything, do everything, and yet then they get the pressure of, but yet, how do I balance that with being a mom and a wife and working outside of the home? And because I would say that's primarily the women I work with, a lot of them in the nonprofit world, but then just also women juggling that perspective in life of holding all of those responsibilities and having to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So
I
many
think
of them
yeah.
just feel like I have to do it perfect and I have to do it myself.
I mean, it's really become a language
Yeah.
that women are unaware. It's what it's what they've been programmed to believe. It's like, not only do I have to do it all by myself, I have to do it like perfectly all by myself. It's like if you were running a business and you had to do everything all by yourself and you do it perfectly, can you imagine what kind of business you would have? You wouldn't have a business. But we would never equate that with women. No
Mm-mm.
wonder women are, overwhelmed. So you've got the pressure of the world. They're underskilled. When I say underskilled, I mean, how do you manage your mind, your emotion? How do you plan? How do you, integrate every part of your life so that you don't actually have parts of you suffer unnecessarily? I think that's the key point. And I think so many of us are just trying to figure out as we go. And I guess I want to kind of dig a little bit deep, and then we can flip it around. But when you say skills like mind management, what are the skills that you think women lack that you feel like, gosh, if they just had that, life would dramatically change? Maybe like 5
Oh,
skills at least that
oh
you've
my
learned
gosh.
in
I
school.
mean, discipline with their routine, I think for is key for most of them. So having a routine, setting how to make a routine, setting up a routine, um, managing my emotions. So, not letting, my emotions from one situation bleed into the other one. That's huge. I talk to women about that all the time. And then The other one is the dealing with their comparison and competition. So how do I
Okay.
handle that? How do I handle comparison and competition, and learning that skill, and the skill of knowing my boundaries
Mm.
and how to communicate them clearly, without shame and guilt. Because I think that's the big piece that, especially I think faithful women oftentimes get tripped up about.
Well,
Yeah.
they don't know how. There's shaming when, there's this, I would say, sacrificial mindset, which is a beautiful thing, but I think it's at the expense of something,
Hmm.
which is often themselves. It's
Hmm.
not, they're given. And so I feel like women, when they come to the women's school, even the idea of what are the desires of your heart, it's like, I I've never even thought about that, January. Like I've never asked that. I've never been taught to ask that. So, I mean, this is, when I do this with women who've almost never heard of the women's school we started, I go deep in the desires of their heart, and honestly, either women are completely in shock and stumped, or they're angry. They're angry and angry at the fact that I'm like, why would you ask this question? And anger comes from, I think, this stifling. But the third one, they just literally like collapse in tears. And all of which reveals a wound.
Hmm.
It's I think there's this stigma around desire,
Hmm.
and it's this sort of too radical extreme of, ignore or indulge, not
Yeah.
mature. And I
Yeah.
think that's costing faithful women.
Yeah.
And
So
just
true.
think about it, like, how do we even discover what God wants from us? From thin air?
Yeah.
No, from the desires of our heart.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just think about it. Like, there's something so unique about who we are that even the desires of our heart are so wrapped in what we want. That's unique to what you want, what I want.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yet we don't give women permission to explore the deepest desires of their heart. And no wonder women are unfulfilled.
Yeah. And I think they're scared, right? They're scared if I started to even take the time to ponder or reflect on what are the mature desires of my heart, things might have to change. I might have to set up boundaries. I might have to say no to things. And and we oftentimes, again, this is something you teach well in the women's school and we do in our masterminds, is that difference between dreaming and then the execution of it, right? So we can't do both together. Because it stops us. I mean, I get tripped up in it too, because I can tend to like, oh, but it requires this and this and this, and I don't have all of that yet. And then I go, no, if God is giving that desire to me and it's on my heart and it's part of my mission, I'll be equipped to do it, right?
Yeah. You have to give yourself permission to be equipped to do. That's really what I feel like.
Mm.
But when you go back to, I just want to, because I think you address something so big, the fear.
Mhm.
I feel like women are afraid to actually reveal parts of themselves that they don't have words for, but they feel it, but they're afraid to get to know who they are because they don't think they like who they are. And
Mm.
it's a sad truth. Women are not sitting around in conversation and say, "I don't like who I am. I don't want to know." But they're just not wanting to go there.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
part of it is because we are shamed. Part of it is just, like you said, it requires us to die to our own self. But the alternative is to numb ourselves into addictions,
Mhm.
into comparison. I mean, it's a prison. We
Mm.
never we never arrive at who we were created to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the burden of an unmet potential because
Mhm.
we're unwilling to go to the desires of our heart and enter into layers of grief, because that's often what happens. I don't know if you've
Mm.
because you have to realize, oh, I have not lived the life I wish I have. I actually don't like who I am. Maybe I married the wrong man. Wait, I've totally messed up. I mean, this is the truth.
Yeah.
And so we have to, I think that's something that if you can't do it alone,
Yeah.
That's why you need somebody to walk you, and you also realize that you're not alone. That's helpful to realize like you're not the only one suffering that, you know. How does
Mm.
that land in your heart as a coach when even just these conversations, does this resonate, you think, with?
It resonates with me, and it also is something that I struggle with myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I struggle with loving myself. I struggle with, the perfectionism. I struggle with revealing myself,
Mhm.
'cause I'm afraid that I'll be judged, or what will other people think. I mean, even my spouse, you know what I mean? It's hard to be vulnerable, particularly because I came into, I think, the woman's school and these amazing tools and skills and mindsets, and I had already been married for a number of years. So,
Oh yeah.
you created a pattern and a way of living, right? And to shift that actually is challenging. And so, a lot of the work that I've done on myself, I see it in the women that I coach as
Mhm.
well. But it also is something I have to keep coming back to, which is actually one of my questions for you
Okay,
is,
we can flip it around now.
yeah,
We
so
can
flip
just-
this, it was
Yep,
perfect. Like,
we're gonna flip it around. Perfect timing. Great.
yeah. So how do you handle when your thoughts and your emotions, when you slip back into the old habits, the old person, right, that aren't serving you well, that, and you've worked hard to overcome them, and you're working to become this woman that you've designed and that God wants you to be, but then you've slipped back. You've slipped back into old habits and old patterns and old thinking, and you're kind of stuck there. How do you get out of that place?
Well, first thing is awareness. So, in a situation, it seems like, okay, I'm back into this old place. I'm going to negative thinking or whatever habitual patterns that no longer serve you. Just knowing, oh, I'm in there.
Mm,
Uh, Number two, you really need to get help. What I mean by that, if it's prolonged, like this is, I think, oh, I'm in that day. The biggest thing is that when you're in that day, you're having that moment, give yourself what I call an off day, an angry day. But remember, don't prolong the day. Like
mm,
you can have those off days, but the moment you go, oh, it's 2 days, I'm thinking and negative thinking, like then you go into some kind of go to 3 days at a slump. You've got to call someone, you've got to get help before I think you go down into the 3, 4 day. Because
mm,
we all have off days. And I think that's part of the journey towards any kind of greatness. You're like, oh, today, like Angela said, I'm having, just an off day, right? Like I think we have sometimes I say just have an angry day. When I'm pursuing my dreams and I wrestle with God, I'm like, today is my angry day. Like, I'm just going to have an angry day. And so that's how I think is that awareness. Number two, don't prolong. Number three, ask for help. Number four, if it's been prolonged, you really have to get into a group and accountability because
mhm,
I just don't think that, if you have a pattern of slipping, it's that muscle needs to be so strong that you can get yourself up. There is going to be a time that you can have off days, 1 or 2 days, and you have built the muscle that in those off days, tomorrow is you're going to pick back up. And I know that. I know that through experiencing the women have gone through. I know it through myself. But if you haven't had that, you need the infrastructure.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You and so the best thing you can do is just call someone, call your coach, call your community, and say, "I'm having an off day. Walk me out of this. I
Yeah.
need somebody to walk me out of this." And I think that's the purpose of friendship.
Mhm.
I think that's the purpose of mentorship, coaching. Walk me out of this. But
Mm,
give yourself the grace to have your off day, but also the grace to know you shouldn't stay there. It's a
yeah.
decision.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the key piece is not to sit there, right? And also to recognize, is it one day, right? Am I giving myself permission for one day? I love that. I love that. And just give yourself permission, and then go. I've got to pick myself up now, and I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. January, I so admire your passion, your mission, and how you juggle your womanhood from being a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, right? Um, how do you do that? And I think particularly, how do you do that in light of you have to have popularity in the woman who you are and circles that you are in, and you might get invited to a lot of different things, right?
Mhm.
And some things like how do you juggle it all and make it look so graceful and
Yeah.
peaceful and such an inspiration, I think, to other women like myself who is also a wife and a mother and an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. And there's some days I get tripped up with the priorities, or I get tripped up with, the call. So how do you do that?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think, to be honest, I've just built certain muscles earlier than some women. I mean, that's, I don't think I've got anything special. What I mean by that, mind management. Um, the things that happen in the home, it doesn't get to me. So I think that's a big thing, because I think when we have an off, when my children are crying or someone's off or somebody's misbehaving, like, to me, it's just part of the everyday great, great, beautiful life. So I think what might trip somebody off, I have developed a muscle that says that is really not a big deal. Recalibrate, get yourself together. So that's, I think, important, because that impacts everything. Number number two, I rely on my rhythm of life.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is I've once again built a muscle of, I get up at 4 in the morning. Like, I just have built that habit. Some certain seasons in my life I can't, like postpartum, but even though I am, when I'm pregnant, I'm so consistent actually. That's, but it's a muscle. And here's the thing. The dream is so clear. Nobody needs to get me up in the morning. I think that's a key factor. So yes, I've built the muscle, but clarity of the dream. So I think my rhythm of life is very simple. Like from 4 to 7, that's my time to pray, to study. So that's the other thing, by the way. Study, I think, is the like single most important habit after prayer.
mm,
I would even put it before exercise, because I don't like to exercise and I do it because I just have to do it because part of my wholeness. But I do because that's actually what gives you this shift of mindset. Okay. So what am I studying? I'm studying people who are able to actually cross the bridges of what I'm trying to do. For example, Buy Back Your Time is a book that Ryan's reading, and learning to buy back your time, learning to, just things that. So I think that's important in my study. But then my rhythm of life is very simple. Like, I say no 90% of the time, Amy. I really do. And even in Ave, like, I serve the women. I know what I'm called to, but then it's my husband and Ryan. Like, I just keep it pretty simple, and I live in time blocks. Like, it's just, like, I do, like, I even, you should see my schedule right now. My children know, it's like, okay, Monday to Tuesday, I've got my long days, but then on, it's just time blocks. So
mhm,
that gives me the peace to know whatever I can get done in this particular moment, that's what I have allotted for the week.
mm.
So I, as much as possible, I keep that quite simple. Now, there's a lot of skill that happens in that time block, though, because like my menu is done. Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have no help all summer. My house is just as clean. Like, it's not. The house is orderly, and it's a standard that I've learned to build. I'm not trying to say, "Oh, look at me." It's just the skills that I have developed. So I can, I'll Saturday I'll make the meal for the week. My menu is there. And I'll do that with all these little hands. And so what would normally take me an hour would take me 3 or 4 hours, but it's okay. It's Saturday. So I just prioritize really,
Mm,
really, I think really well, maybe. And in business, it's a different thing because I have to learn to even prioritize within what is necessary in business. I'll talk about that in a
mhm,
minute. So, um, and also delegating. My children do a lot of work. But it depends because, your son is young.
yeah.
It depends on what he's capable of. I have older children, right? So I think I delegate a lot. I set a standard in my own house. My children are, It is what it is, and you're this patrol and this, your laundry patrol and your, your breakfast. So I'll delegate a lot. I can't underestimate also that Ryan is helpful.
Mhm.
That's a huge factor because you, we want to make sure that we're present for the children. So if I have to be out, then we have to kind of make sure that he's there and he's managing it. So I think the rhythm of life matters. The ability to say no matters. You have to know when to get help and the right kind of help.
Mm.
That's huge. You can't do it alone in your business. And obviously I don't have help right now, but I have children that help me. But when I first started to do this, that was the main thing I did was get outside help. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that's a sufficient answer, but I don't get stress a lot. Like it takes a whole lot of me to kind of, and I think that is,
And that's I don't know if that's a skill or if that's right to know to prioritize and to know, okay, that's a level of mom's got to interfere and mom's got to go over there and handle it, right? Or and also I love this idea of this time blocking
Mhm.
and really being focused within that, right? Because we could waste that whole time away too, right? If we didn't have a plan for that time. And also, like when that time's up, I move on to the next thing, which I know I sometimes struggle with that. Oh, another half an hour to be done. Like, nope, on to the next thing. And also giving ourselves permission to get help. I
Mhm.
think that, I didn't grow up in a family that had any kind of outside help, and didn't live, lived close to some family, but it was hard for me. It's hard for me to ask for help. And I think it's hard for other women too, at least a lot of the women that I work with, to have a cleaning lady or to exchange childcare with another mom or, whatever it is. Right. And so I can see how those things help you to master this life that is, it just looks beautiful. It really looks beautiful and attractive. It looks attractive. And I think that that's one of the things that drew me to the women's school originally was hearing you speak. It was on a Zoom meeting of women, a Catholic conference. And then I went out to your website and I was reading your mission statement and I was like, oh, this just
Mhm.
sang to my soul. It just was like,
Mhm.
I want to be part of this. I need this in my life. And then after starting it, wanted to give that to other women as well. And so, um, it's kind of like being apostles and evangelists, right? Making our lives so attractive
Mhm.
that other people want to know what it is that we have, right?
Yeah, or even our children. I think that's the first person we evangelize is that they have to love the life. They have to be inspired by the life I'm living. It really,
Mm,
and here's the thing, Amy, is that we have to have a dream that we're pursuing
mm,
because that they have to see that we are, I'm there's a reason why we're getting up. Because I can't like, when my son and my children see me and Ryan get up early, and then they see me doing the dishes, and then they see me late at night, and they see me wrestling with a critic, and they see me writing a book, or they see me getting back up after failed attempts. I can't tell them that.
right, right.
They are witnessing my failure, my frustration, and even, you know, my tears when I'm like,
Mhm,
oh, that did not work out. And I gave it my heart and soul. And I have to, and I just think that's hard to teach. I think that we have to model that for them.
mhm,
And I just think that we're all in a deficit. What I mean by that is who's teaching the woman to discover the
yeah,
desires of her heart, to
right,
dream, to manage her home. And really, if you think about it, if you're a faithful woman out there, I live and have studied and aspire for the Proverbs 31 woman. It's my favorite scripture in the gospel, and it's given me permission to know that help is essential for entrepreneurs. I don't know
mhm,
if you, and to me, the ability to be able to manage our home, I don't think is for the chosen few.
mm,
That
mm-mm,
we were designed, you know. to be nurturers of humanity. But if a woman is incapable of nurturing the very nature in which she's created, all else suffers. So that's why a woman has to really invest in herself. I just don't know if there's any way around it. Like it, you know, I'm very grateful. Like my life is actually really simple. It's beautiful and rich because it's simple. Like it's not, when I say that, it's like even this morning we watched the rain, and in Ina had made sourdough bread because she's out of town, and we had sourdough bread, and I'd made lunch, homemade dressing. It was simple.
Simple. Yeah.
Yeah. We put a movie on because it was raining, and then they did like there's I don't I'm like, you better commit to this game, and you better be like the next basketball player if you're gonna do this. Otherwise, we're not doing five things. Like, no, and sincerely, like I tell my children, like,
Mhm.
when my children sometimes they go to me and they don't say it anymore, like, Mom, I'm bored. I'm like, great, that's a great place to be. I'm like, you're on the right track. I love it. And they're like, I'm bored. I'm like, look at the clouds. Like I just so I
I
it's a you have your scripts ready, and so
I do the
um
same thing for Eddie. I do the same thing with Eddie. And I think the summertime we get the more bored complaint. But I'm like, look at the clouds and look at the rain and look at the flowers and look at the buildings. And there's just so much we learn by observation and just in calming our mind and our body. Okay, I have one more question for you.
yes, please.
What are the things you do for self care?
Ooh,
Which,
great question.
we teach our women, right? Self
Yeah.
care is all about, so it leads to abundant contribution. But I know this is an area I struggle with. Like if someone
Mhm.
were to say, like, write down, Amy, 5 things that bring you, 20 things that bring you joy. I think I might have a
Mhm.
hard time writing them down as far as self care things. But what do you personally do, January Donovan, to
Yeah. I love
feel
okay, I'll tell you exactly. I go
okay?
to the beach once every quarter and have a full day, and on the way there, I listen to 80s and 90s music because 'cause I'll get that out of the way, and then I'll watch funny music, and then I'll read, and then I'll pray, and I'll spend all the day in the beach. So, to me, like, long hours of contemplation, like, a little fun because 'cause I'll put on some funny things, and then I'll study. That to me is self-care. It's prayer, it's journaling, but it's in the ocean. Like, I love, uh,
Mm.
that to me, but that's unique to me,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh, believe it or not, self-care for me is watching something funny. Like, Brian's like, "What are you doing? Send me something fun middle of the night." I'm like, "I've just been deep thoughts for," I mean, not middle of a work day. Like, "I've just been deep thoughts for 4 hours. And my brain's a bit fried and I need to laugh." So, uh, I love to actually laugh. So, those are just like fun things. I love looking at fashion things, to be honest. Like, um, I just look at I love colors, I like to look at things, so I think I've never really responded this way, I think this is the first time, but I will have, like, certain sites, and I'll look at that, and I'll like, the arts, just
Mhm,
because I think it gets my mind, into creative things, but, self-care to me is a form I like to listen audio to, books on tape,
mhm,
um, I love that, there wa once upon a time, I used to just, like I just wanna go to, like, window shopping. I don't have that as much anymore just because I'd rather be with my children. But
yeah,
journaling is a form of really, self care for me.
mhm.
And here's the thing, Amy, like I have long hours and I'll end up thinking about the women's school. And so I'll whip out something, yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's just, difference. A lot of times self care for somebody is with a friend.
mhm,
Um, Silence to me is self-care. Like I think that's just I'm introverted. I have okay, I know what self-care is. Vacation. Like just
yeah,
I love to just I'm like, oh look at like I get so excited like a little
yeah,
kid, like, oh, we can go to this park. This morning even
mhm,
I showed the kids um Ocala, they have this like natural springs in Florida. And I'm like a
yeah.
kid, like, oh, we can go to these springs and there's gators in the springs. I'm like, oh, it's not a good idea.
It's okay, it's okay. Right, right. Well, and I think that might change over the years, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
feeds us, right?
absolutely.
What we
Mhm.
so it's not always the same, but, I love that your examples, like, nothing is extravagant, nothing is necessarily takes a lot of money,
Yeah,
but it does take time.
yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a great,
And
yeah.
and
Mhm.
we have to give ourselves permission for that,
Mhm.
right? And I'm an extrovert, so that's so funny that I see you all the time, like doing things and on Facebook and on Instagram and on TikTok, and I'm like, and I know, and on stage, and I'm like, I know she's an introvert. This has got to be exhausting for her.
And that's why I think I need my quiet, but I love people. That's where,
Yeah,
like when I am there, my heart just like I ache for that. I just know where to get fill my well,
yeah.
like it's
I think that's very true, right? That's true. Like I do know for me, having a cup of coffee with a girlfriend fills my well, but also grabbing my Magnolia magazine and heading to Caribou for coffee, that
yes.
also fills me, right? So it help the creative side of me. It helps, and so,
Mhm.
but I was just like, I wonder what January does when she needs to fill her tank, and it sounds too like when you said you do it quarterly, right? That you go to the ocean, and
Yeah, I do. And honestly, sometimes when mine's like, oh, I think you need to go to the ocean. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, "What?" Okay, yeah. Am I snappy? Yeah, I'm like,
they,
"That's not nice." Yeah, so,
they know
but
us so well. They know us so well.
yeah, yeah, and,
Yeah.
I have to almost honestly, the challenging part is because I love being with my family to almost force myself to do it. That's the honest truth. Like, I won't
Mhm.
volunteer even though my heart is aching for it just because I just don't like to leave my children. Like, I don't really and there's always work to do in the women's school. Like,
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
like never just it's not. So I will tell you, and we can wrap this up. One of the best things that I have really enjoyed for self care is living in my imagination.
Mm.
So I literally go there in the dreams that I feel like are deep in my heart and the dreams that I want for next year. And I will be so moved in my imagination alone. Like it actually nurtures my heart.
Oh.
It's still free. It's still free. None of it is still costing anything.
I gotta work on my imagination skill.
Yeah. It's so I just listened to Bob Proctor this morning. He's one of our role models. He's passed, but
Mhm.
his content is so good and just talks about the importance of imagination as really everything that has
Yeah,
created really came in someone's imagination. Like
that's
the
so true.
power of the imagination. I mean, the woman's school is born of imagination.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my 8-year-old, I mean, he's always had a very active imagination, and
Mm,
I learned from him. I'm like, "What? Tell me that again. Tell me again how you that whole story in your head, or making up a game or a character,
yeah.
and then, what color mom and what weapons
Oh,
and what is the hair."
mm,
Like, and I was like, "He's teaching me
oh,
how to live in my imagination."
yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And without the woman's school, I would have considered it wasted time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Amy, you're not alone. And unfortunately, isn't it amazing that we are called to be like a child of God, and yet we think it's so imprudent and practical to imagine the what ifs in our life.
Hmm.
I just think there's this a disconnect sometimes.
Yeah.
And actually the faithful woman suffers even more because she'll just brush it under. She'll
Yes.
just offer it up years and years until she wakes up one day and she is numb.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's actually functioning well is her faith. And that is the only thing she holds on to. And she then says, you know what? This is what this earthly life is for. We just die and I ache for heaven. She said, you should ache for heaven, but we should live as though heaven was a gift on earth.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
No, but think about it. You know,
Yes.
well, do we just negate the privilege of being in this life, in this body, or do we say, what are the desires of my heart? How do I design a life that I want to actually live? Like, our dream life should be how we live on a daily basis. Like but I think, and I'll say this last point is that when you don't have the skill, when you're still building these muscles, it feels like a mountain. No, it's the truth.
It's true.
It's literally, like think about, like I always think, when they have the Olympia, the gymnast, right?
Mhm.
And they go in this 2-minute floor and it looks flawless. And you're like, I can do that. It's so easy. Like they just tumble, And can you imagine, like, the decades of training, of tumble,
Mhm.
of jumping, and the symphony of those skills? Now that gymnasts won't even think twice about jumping, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's part of who they are. But once upon a time, probably felt like a mountain of all these skills and this mindset and the skill set to create a symphony of skills that makes that, you know, whatever that presentation seem flawless. It will happen.
Yes.
It will come a point where the mind management, your kids crying won't hurt, won't bother you, that you can clean the kitchen also while being fully present and singing. Like that does, but it won't happen without design, not by chance. It has to happen by choice, by study, by consistent commitment, through coaching, through accountability. Like it's so possible. And I'm a living testimony. So are thousands of our students that are coached with, by women like you. Like it does, but those first few years are daunting years. I will say that because my first 4 years in college, when I started this mentorship, I cried every day. No, that's the
I,
truth.
I'm consoled by these words.
No,
And reminded too that it doesn't happen overnight. I
oh,
want it to be quickly. I want the transformation to be quick, and I want it to be permanent. And it isn't always. It's just, oh, there's that old thought coming back up. There's that, and it just and so it's just a reminder that we just have to keep at it, right? I can't give up. Other women who have designed the life that they want to live
yeah.
cannot give up. We can't give up.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah.
it will be very hard, and it will be twice as hard if you're surrounded with women that are not designing and aspiring for that beautiful life.
Mm,
It will be twice as hard, if not three times as hard, because inevitably the language that you're used to, the people that you're surrounding yourself with, you have to understand and reset the expectation of the type of friendship because they're going to bring you down, and you have to know that.
yeah. That's what do you say? We're the sum of the five people we spend the most time
Yeah,
with, and that's a skill. That's another skill, right? Is knowing who's in my inner
for
circle,
sure.
and then going. I might need to swap some people out.
Well, you do have to swap some people out, but see, that's the thing. The friendship changes expectations. So
Hmm.
it's not like you abandon your friends. You just know it's a different type of friendship. It's a mentor friendship. It's no longer a mutual friendship. That matters, because it's not like you see you later. But I mean, some friends you really do have to. That is one thing I do really well is that my inner circle is fiercely protected by women who are tender, who are fierce, who are hardworking, who really understand the value of pursuit. And are willing to suffer for it. I think that because that's a very vulnerable space and they have influence in your dreams. They
Yes.
have influence in your call. They have influence in your faith. And so if that circle of influence has a hard time dreaming or is so negative, I mean, you
Mm,
you lose the chance to fulfill the very purpose of why you're here simply because you lack the skill of holding the right type of boundary of the right type of women around you. I mean, it's that profoundly big, I think.
yes. It is so important. It's so important, and we don't often put the importance on it that we should. We just, we blow it off, or we think it doesn't impact us. And so that's, I think, one thing the Women's School has given me too is a collection of women who are pursuing their dreams and business and
Yeah.
wholeness. And that support is there. And they're not all in the inner circle, of course, but I know that they're there out there too, doing
Yes.
that. And I could call them, and I never would have had them in my life without this.
Mhm.
And so just thank you for pursuing your dream and your mission from the Lord, and continuing to do it every day, because I know it's not hard, not easy. I know it's not easy.
Well, I have some hard days, but honestly, when you're in alignment, I think with your purpose, you can have hard days and still have it sweet.
Mm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that's the cross becomes truly sweet. So I have hard days, like marketing's a hard day. I'm just telling you what I don't like. Just, I'm like this. Marketing crucifies me, God. Like,
Yeah.
let me teach all day long. No, I bargain with
Yeah.
God a lot. I'm like,
Right,
I will
right.
tell you, God, what I know. I know I know what I know what to do. And what things I don't need to do. Anyways, but
Yeah.
but 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 what's the alternative?
Right.
To abandon the very ache of our heart. Like anybody that's listening here, if you're not studying every day, you are robbing yourself of the very purpose of why you're here on earth, including your sanctity.
Yeah.
So make no mistake, you have to study yourself to receive the fullness of how God wants you to live your life. Because
Mm.
that your faith could fall in rocky ground.
Yeah. And then what happens? Yeah.
Then I'll tell you what happens: depression, anxiety, numbing, frustration, midlife crisis, divorce. I mean, that's we're living it.
Yeah.
This is where we are. Or children that are not living their faith because the incongruency of how parents are actually uninspired by the life that they're living. Like we can't just tell our children have my faith, but don't have everything else.
Right. Oh, right.
The
Yeah.
hypocrisy of that is unsustainable. Our children are far too smart to they can put two and two together. Why would I be faithful, mom? Why should I sign up for your daily cross when there's no resurrection in the end?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Oh,
that's not fair to God.
no. Mm.
So, and I get fierce about that because I think that people are leaving the church.
Yes.
But women are suffering, we're suffering because we just don't know how. And that's obviously why we have the women's school. And
Right.
that's
We
why.
want we want to stop some of the suffering, right? We want to help so that the load is lighter. Let's have some levity in this journey of
Yeah.
life as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we should suffer our call.
Yes.
But I think that our suffering sometimes can't even get to our call. Like we're not even swimming towards it. We're just trying to kind of like get by.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get through my day. My toddler's screaming, I'm a hot mess.
Okay.
I'm like,
So,
why? You know,
yeah.
because we lack the skills.
Yeah.
My toddlers actually scream. I'm just
Right.
saying, like my toddler right now is not a toddler, he's 3 and he's speaking so loud. And I'm like, say whisper. Like, like
Right.
he
Right.
doesn't know. So
They need
anyways,
to be trained.
yeah,
It's so true. It's so true. And we have to train ourselves too, and so that we can help our children to
yeah.
live lives that are whole and free and fruitful and joyful too.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what you're doing. That's what you're doing, Amy. You're fighting for your family. And I know that personally from knowing you, and that you're dying to your old self and that you're building a life of wholeness. And, I always say authentic femininity, and the byproduct of authentic femininity and womanhood is a life of wholeness.
Mm,
And that's why to be whole is to actually reclaim the very dignity of what it means to be a woman. And that's to be whole. And
mm.
that's worthy work.
That is worthy work. That's beautiful.
And we can end with that because I think we're past time. But
Oh,
thank
it's
you.
so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, dear
Thank
Grace.
you. Thank you. I'm so grateful for you and for all the listeners out there. If you are interested in investing in your own mindset and skill set, reach out to Amy Cummings, reach out to the Women's School. And we're here. We're here for the long haul. We're here because we have a vision to give women the mindset and the skill set necessary to actually achieve the very purpose of why they're here on earth. And there's no fluff in the Women's School, right, Amy? We go deep.
No.
There's no time for fluff work. And so thank you all for listening. Amy, thank you so much for your time. I'm always
Thank
blessed by you and for your friendship. So God bless you.
you, January too. God bless you. Bye.